Hello, thank you for joining us. Welcome to another edition of In the Metal. Each week, In the Metal takes you on a journey into the world of independent watchmaking. And we go from to visit the different watchmakers in their ateliers and to go really into the unseen corners of independent watchmaking and find out some of the most incredible timepieces that are being made by anyone today. So each week we have been typically visiting a watchmaker in his atelier. This week we're going to do something that's slightly different in that our guest this week is a figure who actually defines what contemporary independent watchmaking is. His company is like a collective of some of the most profound talents in the world today in all the different facets of, be it the technical end of it, the horological engineering, finishing, design, materials, absolutely everything. This man's work has been, as I say, iconic and defining of this current generation of independent watchmaking. To help me, I am joined by my usual great friend, Dan Spitz, and I wonder if you are there, Dan. Hey, there we go. I was trying to figure out.
Hey, Johnny.
Hey, what's going on, my man?
How's it going, bro?
Hey, well, I'm nervous. What about you?
I don't really get nervous. But
you don't get stage fright anymore. You've been there, man. You had to screaming audiences going.
This is just kick ass. That's all I can say. Yeah, it really is. Because Max is he just lives outside the box. He is the visionary. He is he broke down all the walls for us all to have no boundaries. We had all, as an independents, we all had no boundaries to create what we deem as mechanical, micromechanical art. But he just said, break down that boundary. Be friends. Who is my friends? Who can I gather up to create incredible works of micromechanical art? And that's what I like to do. Help other people. And we all help ourselves.
Yeah,
we need that as human beings. That's what love is. And that's an extension of his arm. And I don't think many people talk about that. They just look at these insane, amazing products that he's made and where he's taken it. But there's a whole behind the scenes action of love that's involved to get there. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Without a doubt. So, people, if you're not already aware, we're talking this evening with the man who is the mastermind behind one of the most iconic brands in independent watchmaking. It's a brand as opposed to being a solo artist like Dan, who is creating his own piece in his own workshop. There is a distinction. There's independent watchmakers and there's independent brands. And as brands go, they don't come cooler than MB&F. MB&F is an acronym for Max Büsser and Friends. And Max is the visionary. He has spent a career where it started off at Jésus Le Coultre. He had then was appointed one of the directors of just see Dan has disappeared there. So come back, Dan. So also I think you were CEO of Harry Winston. Sorry, that threw me there. No. You're back down. And then moved on. At Harry Winston, Max created this genre of opus watches. And each one of the opus watches, he took in, consulted, collaborated with some of the best watchmakers in the world of our time. He then, after I think about 7 or 8 years, evolved away. 2005, resigned from Harry Winston and set up his own company. So, hey, that's enough of that old blabbering from me, isn't it? Like, so, and we're all used to having, handsome, charismatic, charming, cool, calm, and collected.
You talking about me again?
people. That's what I was saying. That's enough about us. What about Mr. Max Büsser? Let's go to Dubai. Hello, Max.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hi,
Max.
Gentlemen. Great to be with you guys.
In the metal.
We're glad to have you, Max. As you can see, we're kind of brown-nosing you a little bit.
Give me the love. I can deal with it now. I couldn't before. Now I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Take it when it's going. Absolutely.
I don't know if you're familiar with me and Johnny Do here, but it's just we just speak from our heart and get behind the scenes of the behind the scenes of behind the scenes to try to show there is a lot of love in what we do. And that extension of who gives it and who doesn't. So you're the one that definitely gives it, and you've launched a lot of my friends. You've helped them and taken them out from behind being a solo artist and for other watch collectors to notice who they are. Way back when, from the Harry Winston days. I don't think you get enough credit for that either. I mean, it's MB&F, 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 but I mean Opus. I mean. Think of all the watchmakers that you've brought into that extension of that family as well. And it's quite astonishing what you've done.
It's interesting because there was a moment where everybody was always talking about Opus. And oh, by the way, he's created MB&F. And I actually prefer it the other way around. Is that Opus? That was another life, and now it's my baby. But I mean, it's interesting what you said, because Opus really was created to help a friend. That was the genesis, was that. I'm credited with this incredible, great idea, which may have or not changed part of the watchmaking story. I'm happy if it did, but it was not at all planned that way. It really was François Paul Jaune launching his brand in 2000, Basel Fair. I mean, that's why one of the many reasons I'm sad that Basel is not or maybe happening, is that there were so many things going on backstage. Probably like in a concert, actually. And so I had dinner with François Paul that year, three evenings in 2000, and he was telling me it was not easy because he couldn't speak about the pieces he'd created for third parties before. And we're 20 years ago. It wasn't the event of the independent watchmakers. Nobody was interested in these guys. Mm-hmm. And there was there was internet, but there was no social media. Probably was there the purists? It was just maybe the beginning of the purists. Right. And so he was telling me how difficult it was to try and convince people about taking on his brand. And I said, well, maybe we should do something together. And Harry Winston, could tell the world what a genius you are, and let's have fun, because at the end of the day, I mean, we work like hogs and dogs, but let's have some fun. Mm-hmm. So that's how it started.
Yeah, it's the creativity that's just busting out of independence and the independent watchmaker. Most of us are not good at business. So just like in music, you always see a famous band who got somewhere, but really their manager is the extra member of the band. When it is a situation like that, and he's not just a money-hungry manager, that's really when that band climbs above the other band, and you wonder, they don't play as good, but really, how did they get there? Because it takes a lot of minds and a lot of actions of those minds to come together and make something really move and get where it really deserves to be. And you're a pivotal part of that. And we're all here today to not only give thanks to you for that, because your watches speak for themselves, your designs, your creativity that's busting out of you. We all see that. But then you have that olive branch that you reach out to everybody else, and you suck them in to your crazy ideas, and somehow they become reality. And that's so similar to music and thrash metal, the type of music that I help to put on the map. It's just, let's not just break this rule, but let's not listen to anybody, and let's just go for it. And that's I think where you live, in those streets, bro.
Well, I wasn't always that way. I had a very self-centered young adulthood. It was all about me. It was not about the others. I'm going to say rough, but weird journey as a kid. And I'm a very, very late bloomer. And in my mid-20s, when I started working, I discovered something which actually, for the first time in my life, gave me purpose and I loved. because I was a bit lost. And so I started just thinking of myself, because I was that weird kid who had no friends. I was the geek. I was the guy who had no social skills, which people don't believe me today. But trust me, the guys who knew me when I was 15 or 20 years old were like, how is that? What happened in between? And I'll tell you what happened. The first thing which happened is I discovered a world where I fell in love, which was watchmaking. And watchmaking 30 years ago, when nobody was interested in mechanical watchmaking. There was no glam, no glitz, no money, no influencers, no celebrity endorsements. There was nothing. There was just a little handful of crazy geeks trying to create beautiful in those days, really hand-finished mechanical watchmaking, who were speaking to other crazy geeks, which were a handful of crazy guys who wanted that product. And so that helped me, because I found a family, I found a purpose, I found something which made me proud, and I was pretty good at it. I'll say also, because I was a very late bloomer, I had the chance of having some women in my life who actually fell in love with me when I was not in love with myself. And when these incredible women would look at me and like, you, and I'm like, really? Yeah. Like, not the cool dude behind.
I'm not holding the guitar. I'm not holding the guitar. He is. Really?
and I got love there, and I owe so much to all that. And so that sort of, I built myself with that love. And then it came a point in my life when I realized it's time to give back. And I hadn't been giving back a lot. So, I mean, in the regrets I have in life, and we're going directly into the tough stuff here, is that probably I wasn't kind with it. I wasn't giving back. I probably have always been a respectful person, because my parents were very respectful, but I didn't give much. Until MB&F changed that. MB&F was the beginning of, it's a different me. It's something I want to be proud of. Basically, anything I do in my life since I decided MB&F, is I want to be proud of it. And that completely changes the way you see things, especially in the business. Now, you're always at crossroads in your life. This is a great idea, but we're not going to make any money with it. This is not such a great idea, but we'll make a lot of money with it. Okay, I'm polarizing, but and you're always like, should I go there? For me, it's been absolutely clear in the last 18 years. It's always the one I think is a great idea, which I'll be proud of. Too bad if we don't make any money. So economically, it's a really, really bad way to go down. But life-wise, it's an incredible way. And life is so much easier, so much easier.
Max, now you have a great percentage inside you now of what you just said, these last few years, of what we feel as what true artists feel, be it a musician, a lone watchmaker like me, and here are some of our friends. That's what we have inside. The money is we're not even thinking about that. Okay, as long as we have enough to eat and survive, true artists. That's the term, starving artists. It really comes from. We're happier there because our art needs to get out. We're exploding. You draw on napkins. Each person has their own way. It's literally exploding out of us. Now, me and you, obviously, we can relate on other levels because I've lived another life, right, with music, and I've had everything, the Ferraris, the whatever. That's all great when you're young. You're striving for this, and you want that, you want to get this and get that, and you buy the red Ferrari. Oh, man. As you're pulling out of a Ferrari dealership, a yellow one goes by, same car. And you're like, I should have got yellow. Bro, it never really is gonna make that part of you that happy. It feels good, but but when you're a true artist, what you just explained, it makes a little bit more sense. Once we reach a point in our lives that way, someone like me or someone like you, we want to give back, we want to help in our creativity and bring friends in and draw friends in. Like I'm trying to help my country here and young watchmakers in America, develop stuff that hasn't been here in over 100 some odd years. It's that time, and you've pushed us. By doing your hard work, with those abilities to be able to do that now globally, which we were talking about before we came online. So it's not just, I got to go back to Neuchâtel where I went to school and I have to have my shop there and it has to be stamped. my watch is made in Switzerland. You know, that doesn't mean crap anymore as far as I'm concerned,
No.
because we're past having to have time on our wrist. It is for all of us now. For it's true micromechanical. It's our art. It's my art. It's my memoir. It's that's what I'm producing here, and that's what is being produced in Japan by people there, by everyone, and you help to break down those walls as well. So
you know what? It's not only your art, it's your soul and it's your story. And I think that's what most people forget. They keep on looking at the products. Products are just the fringe benefit of the journey, the story of the creator. And that's what I try and explain to people over the years is, yeah, you get these wonderful big brands, incredibly popular, do great products. And it's exactly like Porsche. Let's take a car analogy. Porsche is a fantastic car. They're super reliable. They're iconic. They've got great resale value. They drive super well. They make 250,000 cars a year. And if you buy one, it's a great product. You're enjoying yourself as a consumer. Now, go and buy, when they were still there, a Wiesmann, or now still, I mean, there are very few left in the world, a Morgan, I don't know, a Koenigsegg, or a Pagani, if we go right up to the top. Somebody who buys a Pagani, there are 20 cars made a year. Yeah. Every Zonda buyer helped Horatio create the Huayra. Every Huayra buyer helped Horatio create the next one he's going to come out. So not only do you have a piece of the soul and the story of that crazy man who thought it was okay to create a car brand, you must be out of your friggin' mind to think that. That a guy is constantly trying not to go bankrupt and getting money to fund his next venture. You've got an incredible piece of art, yes, but you're helping Horatio fuel his dream. And that'll be the same thing for people who'll buy your watch, or buy Stepan Sarpaneva's watch, or Kari's watch, or whatever. I mean, all these independent watchmakers, when you buy one of their pieces, you don't only have a great product, which is made with artisanship, which is something very, very rare these days, but you also are helping a human being dream. And honestly, that for me, and I'm not playing the whole thing, it is as important as the product itself.
You're also helping his freedom. Because being an artist, be it from music, and same thing, me creating a unique music that nobody wanted back then. Nobody would buy it. No record company wanted it. When a day where you had to be signed to what was called a major record deal back then, because you needed, close to $1 million just to step in a recording studio back then. There was no little laptop. You could make your music at home. It didn't exist. You had to hire a producer. He was $250,000. You had to have that kind of influx of, $5-10 million to get going for advertising and all that. And we did that back then in my band, breaking all the rules, but giving us the freedom to do whatever we want, wherever we want, make our own T-shirts without a suit and tie guy telling us what to do. That is a totally different feeling than what you were just saying. Say major brands, they have a business model. They have to meet a certain goal, so a certain amount of timepieces. It's the same kind of thing. If you equate that to corporate music, that's on the radio, pop music, it's manufactured crap. Okay, the music we created is total freedom. If you equate that to independent watchmaking is like the thrash metal of music. It's total freedom. So I'm one guy here just creating thrash metal watches. This is my story. You're not even buying my story. I've been here for 3 years locked up, okay? You're buying a chunk of my human existence, okay? Follow along. Go on my Instagram. That's my magazine. Like it or not, that's where I present my story. And each of us do that, including you. That's your story. Well, and that's the beauty of independent watchmaking. What you helped to push it forward tremendously, and opened so many more doors for everybody. And extending that olive branch out, which I'm really pushed for everyone to do. Not just you, not just me, everybody, wherever you are. If you're in Finland, Sarpaneva, whoever it is, we're all in this together. And now we're at the top. because we've all pushed. Just like thrash metal is selling out the stadiums, the largest grossing tours in the world is thrash metal. We used to stay in the studio and go, can you imagine the day like this music is on maybe on a TV commercial in the background or something, and then we don't burst out laughing like, yeah, never happened, bro, never. And that was like, we used to 20 years ago when I'm thumbing through a magazine and I see Paul Gerber's triple rotor. You know, he had to pay for a little ad in there trying to sell it. Like the ad was like this big, and I'm looking at it like, oh my God, what is that? You know, it's evolved from there to where we are now.
I think, yeah, it's independent watchmaking has come of its time. I can remember going back to 2004, 2005, Max, when I first really discovered that there was more to watches than the handful of generic brands that were in my local watch store. It was not exciting, but I through just the way life falls, the way things fall for you, I ended up, I was in a good old business here in Ireland, sailing along, and one day that changed for me, and I was going to start with and come back in exactly the same sector, and I just had a eureka moment one day, and I said, think of something. If I go to my grave tomorrow, it will have been knowing how to do one thing. And I wanted to set myself a challenge. And so I found myself getting into the watch. I bought, my first watch that I saw was a Tag Heuer Monza as I was passing through an airport in 2004. And I go, God, that's really nice. I hadn't seen that before. So I had no real interest, knowledge or awareness at that time. But long story short, I ended up going home, winding up my computer to see how, if I could get onto this internet thing. And suddenly, instead of having one watch, I bought 8, put them up on this thing called eBay, and made a profit on each one of them, selling with no reserve at auctions. And that introduced me to this. And I said, right, there's no way I'm going back to the business that I was in or the industry I was in. And I found my niche. Like you, when MB&F started, I found myself when I discovered the independent side of the watchmaking. In particular, I was selling Omega, Tag, Girard-Perregaux, Jaeger-LeCoultre, Glashütte, Omega, Maurice Lacroix, Corum, and I had set up a blog to accompany my old website, and it was through that I discovered the independent watchmaking. And my story is, I think people may have heard it before, I wrote an article about a new Rolex back in the day, and I wrote an article about a new Breitling back in the day. And as ever, I submitted those articles to their PR department, saying, look, I've just written about this, it's on our website, I want a pat on the back. And a couple of days later, I got an email back from both of them saying, thank you for your interest in our brand. Well, I also wrote about a guy called Marc Genie, and he had his watch, which is the EDT, and the Prologue it was called. And I wrote an article about it, and I sent it off to Marc Genie, and he replied to me, and it took me about half an hour, like this answer. It took me about half an hour to read his reply. He was gushing. He could not believe that somebody would write about him and about his watch. And this, he worked on his own to create this thing. And he was, at that time, he was director of communications for AHCI. And so I got an introduction into the AHCI back around 2008, 2009, and my life changed. I won't say it. My wife will say, yeah, you're right, it changed you. All right, so Max, I emphasize where you're coming from and how you found yourself when MB&F began, and it's an amazing story.
And now you become one of the most prolific and powerful writers of independent watchmaking. And it's, I wouldn't say prolific.
You get writing enough.
Creativity is like drugs. I'm probably not should be saying that on air. Once you get into it, especially creativity for yourself, meaning you're creating your own baby. You don't give a damn about the market, and that's rule number in my big book of rules, which of course I will throw away one day because it's pointless to have rules. But in the big book of rules, there is one rule: is never listen to the market, never listen to the clients. if you want to create a product. Listen to your guts and your head, and more your guts. And once you start doing this and it starts flowing, it becomes addictive in the fact that you want to do something new and you want to actually get out of your comfort zone, because you realize that it's the risk-taking which gives you the most pride. It's the risk-taking which gives you the kick. There is no pleasure in not taking risks, at least not for me. Yeah. And so you want to do more. You want to do stuff which is even terrifying you more, and you're thinking, oh my God, nobody's ever going to buy this. A watch which is inspired by a dog? Seriously, dude? That's one thing which will never, ever sell. And actually, even that, after 15 years, I procrastinated a good year and a half on the Bulldog, because even I, after 15 years, thought, no, that's pushing it too far. People are really going to take the mickey out of you, as they say. And yeah, you realize that once that's done, you want to do something even more dangerous. Mm-hmm. At least for me, that's the way it functions.
Well, you should.
Max,
not in my previous lives.
Tell people how you kind of flicked that switch, because for a lot of us who's followed you for a little while, we knew that you came out of a business type school with a business type mind, and
I'm an engineer.
Oh, engineer.
Everybody thinks I'm a business guy. I've never been to any business school in my life. I'm an engineer, and it's very important that you name that one. I'm an engineer. I wanted to be a car designer when I was a kid. My parents didn't have the money to send me to the Pasadena Art Center, which was my dream. So I went to the EPFL in Lausanne, which is the Polytechnic of Lausanne, mm-hmm. And I hated it. I did all my years, but I really hated it. And then a lot of things happened at that moment. And by chance, I bumped into watchmaking. So my first job was given to me by Henri-John Belmont, the CEO. They were not called CEOs yet in those days, 30 years ago. They were called managing directors. The MD of Jaeger-LeCoultre, who desperately was looking for people to hire, and nobody wanted to work in watchmaking, and even less at Jaeger-LeCoultre, which was such a small entity on the verge of bankruptcy in the Vallée de Joux. Mm-hmm. And so we were actually 4 of us coming from outside the valley, which were living in the valley during the week, and would go back to our homes on weekends. And in the evenings, Henri-John, we would work from 8 to 8. And at 8 p.m., Henri-John would come and collect his kids, because we were like his kids. There was Yannick Deleskiewicz, who did 30 years as a designer there. He came from Paris, so he would be in during the week up there. Yasmina Steele, who was then moved to Patek and has been at Patek for 25 years, was the communication manager, and myself. And we would have dinner with him every evening. And as you're talking on napkins, drawing the watches and everything. Mm-hmm. And it was mind-blowing. And I know that with age, you start becoming nostalgic and you sort of remember only the great stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was incredible, because we were creating pieces all the time, and we were totally clueless. Mm-hmm. We had no idea what we were doing. No idea. And we made so many errors. I mean, in 92, I joined in 91. I think in 93 at Jaeger-LeCoultre, we had like 12 lines of products. Everybody only remembers the Reverso and then the Master we introduced actually in 92. But we had like every single lookalike. The Krios looked like a Breitling, the Odysseus looked like a Blancpain, the Gentilhomme looked like a Patek, the Herayan looked like nothing on earth. The first Rendezvous was really cool, but nobody understood it. It would have been written Chopard on it. We would have sold hundreds of them. There was a Seductrice looked like a Chopard. I mean, we were copying everybody and trying to find something which would actually sell, because nobody wanted a Reverso. And then something happened during those years that suddenly people started noticing the Reverso, and we were able to build on it. But those were years, and coming back to, no, I don't have a business background. I have an entrepreneurship background, because I was so lucky that as a young engineer, I entered a company which was coming out of bankruptcy, and I was taken under the wings of the CEO who was going to rebuild it. Yeah. And then, you know what I was lucky? Is that when Harry Winston gave me the job when I was 31 of head of that timepiece division, is that it was actually this close to bankruptcy. There were 7 people who all wanted to leave the company. And here I am, I'm 31 years old, I'm given the keys, and it's a total, absolute disaster in every single way. And I jump on a plane, go to New York as soon as I discover the extent of the disaster. And I tell my bosses, Mr. Winston and Mr. Benvenuto, who was the CEO, who hired me, like, this is dramatically wrong, everything here. And they said, oh, yeah, that's not good, is it? Okay, deal with it. I'm sorry? We'll deal with it because we've got so many other issues that either we bankrupt the company or you deal with it. And so, you know what business background I have? Is having the luck of having started in 2 companies which were on the verge of bankruptcy.
But that gave you freedom because it wasn't a roadmap that you had to follow every single way, and maybe you could bend the rule a little bit if you sat in a boardroom with a bunch of suit and tie dudes. They were just like, you know, just whatever, dude, I'm busy.
We had to try every single stuff we could. Just try stuff because you're going to die if you don't try. Right. I read one of actually the best books I read recently is Mark Randolph's biography. Mark Randolph, the creator of Netflix. It's called "This Will Never Work" or something like that. That will never work, I think. And it's an insane story of how Netflix started. And one of the things he says is just like, try stuff. And I so agree with him. Just try stuff. The worst which can happen is it will fail.
You know,
and you will have learned something.
It's the same thing again with music. It's the same thing. If you believe what you're creating is a product of you, and you can directly sell it. So it's a whole different story than the eras we talk about 20, 30 years ago when I started. If you can create that and break through, and if 1%, if not less, of the population, there's plenty of people on this planet. It's a very big planet. People don't realize that because most people never even leave their neighborhoods, okay? Or at least their state in America, let's say. Their whole life, they never leave. So they really are sheltered. If less than 1% of the people like what you do and 99% of them is throwing shit at you, you're a success. It's great. You're doing what's inside of you and presenting that to the world. And that's your love and your gift back to the world. That's all you need to know.
I'll go even further to that. I'll go further. I get a lot of people coming up to me saying, I want to create my brand, young and not so young. And I ask them why. So I love watches. That's a great answer. I hate my job. That's a really bad answer. I think there's a market. Like, oh my God, get out of here quickly. And my only advice to them, if there is one, is like, you've got 90% chance of failure. You know, creating a brand is like having a child. It's not like getting married. Getting married, you can get divorced. Having a child, whatever happens, is your child for life.
For sure.
Now, when you create a little watch brand, you've got 2 chances of it finishing. The first is bankruptcy, and the second, well, actually 3. First is bankruptcy. The second is you sell it to somebody, and the third is you die. And so you sell it to somebody, never happens. I have never heard of a small brand. I'm not talking of Breitling or Jägerle-Kult, whatever. I'm talking of a small independent creator being sold to anybody except because they were bankrupt and somebody paid $1 to get them. So forget that. So it's, what is it? You die, or you don't have an option. You're going to go bankrupt. So do it, because if you don't do it, you will never be able to look at yourself in the mirror again.
Well,
because you're never going to make money.
You also should explain to them.
It's not a business. This is not a business. This is a labor of love.
Bingo.
And anybody who thinks the contrary is insane.
There you go. And you were insane when you started it. We're all nuts. Plus, watchmakers, as you know, you live with us. We have extreme OCD off the charts. But you're insane too, because you split from Harry Winston. This is stuff that people should know. And you took pretty much every penny and then more that you didn't have to have a dream. and make that dream come true, which is what artists do. We don't listen to anybody. If we don't like to take money from anybody else, that would be my first thing to tell everybody. Whatever you got, work with that. If it only buys you 1 Shaolin 70 and 2 collets, use the 2 freaking collets and borrow the rest. Don't take money from the guy in the suit and tie. But anyway, let me go back. So you took all your money, and you ran into a very big problem at the onset of your dream with MB&F, right? It's a story that I think most people know. But if you could show people just a little bit of that short struggle, because me and Johnny like to tell everyone, it ain't so easy. It looks easy at the end. When we're up here and we're pedaling along okay, all right? But what we go through, the struggles we go through as true artists, and you're a true artist, to get where we got to go is usually on the fringe of bankruptcy in the beginning or worse, right? And the dreams are not happening. You're not sleeping for how many years. You can't believe what's happened to you just as it was going to be launched. Or these stories that we always hear. So if you could tell people, explain to people when
it's an incredible story, and it involves some incredible watchmakers also. So HM1 was Laurent Bess. Well, here it is. Laurent Bess and Peter Speakmarin. Laurent Bess was the engineer. Peter Speakmarin was the watchmaker. Very good friends. We worked together at Harry Winston. They're the 2 only people I actually sat down with before I launched my brand, because I couldn't afford anybody to know about this as I was heading Harry Winston. And this is an industry where everybody talks, and I couldn't afford that. And both of them said, if you do your brand, we're there with you. Okay, so here I am. I leave Harry Winston, which is completely under shock. Put all my money in the company. We start working on this project. This is July 2005. Actually, it's when I really tendered my resignation in April that I actually was able to start working on it on the side, because everybody knew I was leaving. And by November 2005, I go around the world with a drawing of that piece to see my best Harry Winston retailers, and I need to convince them to not only order pieces, but to pre-purchase at least 30%, give me a 30% upfront payment on whatever they're going to order, and I needed to pre-sell 25 pieces. I actually get, after 3 weeks around the world, exactly 25 pieces, which is pretty surreal. This, I am on the honeymoon. It's incredible. Then in April 2006, I managed to get a working prototype, which is insanely quick. So great. Everybody worked on this product. I've never ever since been able to do something as fast, by the way. And all this is going fantastically. And in May 2006, a brand buys the subcontractor who had actually done the plans of the movement, who was going to manufacture the parts and assemble them. And the company was going to go bankrupt, it seems. And this brand bought it in a one-night deal. And of course, they didn't buy that subcontractor to make movements for third parties. Now, it's 15 years ago. I'm over this, but really horrible 2006. And the epitome of the horror was on the 8th of January 2007, where I would go there every week to go and see them and see how it was advancing. And there the new owner tells me, we're not going to assemble your movements. I'm like, sorry? What do you mean you're not going to? Again, I'm an engineer, but I'm not a watchmaker. And I'm all alone in my flat. That's me. That's my company. And I'm practically no more money left after a year and a half. And I'm like, well, and I actually, I think the only time in my life I groveled like I've never done in my life. Made a total ass of myself. And that day, karma is incredible. That day, by an incredible chance, Peter Speakmarin was with me. He was sitting next to me because he had also business to see on his own tourbillons, which were made by that company. And he saw me groveling. And after 5 minutes of me making an ass of myself, he sort of took my arm and in English told me, let it go, we'll deal with it. And I was like, fuck, are we going to deal with this? I mean, there is no way we can deal with this. This is 2007, before the crisis. You couldn't get a watchmaker for the love of money. Yeah. They were all up till here with tourbillons and minute repeaters and all the complications. Everything was flying out of stores. And he said, look, we'll deal with it. So we leave the meeting. We go back into my car, and I'm driving down for 2 hours from that place. And Peter is on his phone, and he's calling up all his chums, independent watchmakers who actually assemble movements for third parties. And it's always the same thing, like, my friend Max is in trouble. We need to help him. And the answer I could hear was always the same, like, who the hell is Max? and so he's like, that's not the issue. My friend Max has got a movement. We have to assemble it for him. And the guys told him, no, we've got so much work, we can't. And Peter, and I've told this story a few times, but I want to tell it for the rest of my life. He told these guys, you owe me. I remember him. I can actually remember him saying, you owe me. And the guy's like, okay. And we met 5 of the one I knew was Laurent Bess, and the 4 other independent watchmakers I've never heard of. And yeah, it's Barbara. I had to drop the F-bomb. And so we arrive at the workshop of Peter, and it's a Mission Impossible scene. We've got kits with the movement had 365 components. 50 were missing. We didn't know which ones, and we didn't have the assembly plans because they didn't want to give them to us. So here we are with a massive jigsaw puzzle where we do not know what the photo it's supposed to do. And we're telling these 5 watchmakers, your mission, if you accept it, I wasn't doing anything. It was Peter doing all the work, is we're going to start assembling these movements. And the guys looked at him like, you must be kidding, right? And he was like, no, this is the only way we're going to make this work. So we'll meet every 2 weeks, and we'll basically share. And every 2 weeks, it was, you know, I dreaded those meetings every 2 weeks. The guys are like, what is this? Where does this go? How do you assemble this? Everyone's like, And amongst those 5 is an extraordinary gentleman who you interviewed last week, called Stephen Mcdonald. And he was way, way, way too humble in his interview because, and he always is, by the way, he took the lead very quickly. He was the guy like, I think that's where it should go. This is how it should be done. And very quickly we noticed the components were badly made. So I went back to the factory and said, look, guys, okay, the components are badly made. Can you redo them? And they told me also to buzz off. And so Stephen did that in his little workshop at home during evenings and nights. And so this is started on the 8th of January, remember? February, March, April, May. Now it's 5 months down the road, and we have not finished a movement.
Wow.
Who takes 5 months to assemble a movement? And it was so complicated and so complex, and we had to redo parts and re-engineer stuff. And I didn't have a cent left. I didn't have a cent in, not only of my money had gone a long, long time ago, the $700,000 I got in advance from our retailers were gone. My little reserve that I kept to live without a salary and in case of was gone. And I will always remember, I went to see the bank, which I'd always sworn that I'd never go and see a bank.
No, bro. That's how bad it got.
I mean, there was no other choice. And I'd never done a business plan to get any money because I was not going to get any money. So here I am working like hell during days and at nights trying to put a paper together to convince some banker who doesn't know me to lend me money. And I always remember because I arrived at this meeting and there was these 2 guys in gray suits and blue ties looking at me. And I think by that time in my life, I was 40 years old. I'd managed Harry Winston. I was very rarely nervous in my life, but I remember sweating like a pig. And I was showing them all giving the story, and I had orders, and this is where I was, and this is my cash flow analysis and my P&Ls and all that stuff. And the guy, after 30 minutes, my pitch is finished, and the guys are still like this. and suddenly, one of them looks at me and says, "So what do you want?" And I thought I would be okay with about 150,000 Swiss francs or dollars. So I say 300,000. And And the guy says, "Okay, what's your collateral?" I have nothing. So it was UBS, and I can mention them because there's a happy ending to this. And they basically, I said, look, you've got my company's bank accounts. There's nothing left in it. You've got my personal bank accounts. There's nothing left in it. I rent a flat. I don't own anything. My dad passed away. Didn't leave a cent to my mom, so I actually take care of her. My car is a piece of trash. I have nothing, guys. And it lasted probably, I don't know, 5-10 seconds when nothing was said, which seemed like about 2 centuries. And suddenly the guy looks at me and goes, "Okay."
Wow.
I was like, "What?
Are you kidding me, bro?"
I always remember because I was like, "What?"
I sold it all the way home. Wow.
This man's name is Christian Hubert. And I was told afterwards that he was a real exception at UBS. He was the guy in charge of watchmaking department and all the credits for watchmaking brands. And he knew his stuff. And he had more, freedom than most people in a big bank. And so he gave me a thing without collateral credit. And I think we used like six grand out of it, because on the second week of June, we managed to deliver the first 2 pieces. So 6 months after the whole horror story started.
Wow.
Now, those watches never... No, Sophie, don't go to UBS anymore. It's not the same guy.
You gotta find out where he's working. He might not be at UBS anymore.
We managed to deliver the pieces, and we're delivering the 25 pieces.
Right.
But now I've already got 1/3 in advance. Remember?
Right.
The 1/3 in advance is the margin, and now I'm delivering product without any margin.
Right. How you do the second series, right?
So you don't have to have gone to Harvard Business School to realize that's not a good business model. And so 2007 was insane. I mean, the amount of sleepless nights I had was crazy. So that's the beginning of the story.
All that
you have to right down to the end, to the bitter end, to have nothing.
That's showing everyone this struggle. It's not easy, everybody, and there was love involved. You know, people came, right? And me and Johnny, right? Peter McElherron, his name comes up everyone we interview here somehow, some way. I don't know how. Like behind the scenes, he's helped so many people, Max.
He has, yeah.
His love, and I know it's not coming out of his mouth. He's not telling anyone. No, it's like. All of a sudden, almost everyone, right, Johnny? Somehow, someone he's touched. It's someone we would never think in a million years. So be it not just you. And of course, you needed to find a certain kind of watchmaker to help you back then, because it would have to be someone like me, where we've been doing this for a very long time, since I'm 8 years old, and seeing all the vintage stuff when we didn't have CAD drawings, we didn't have Snap, we didn't have iPhones to take pictures as we take it apart, and the people that can do perpetual calendars and so forth from memory, and a couple little things on a napkin that we draw. That was a whole different era of watchmaking for young watchmakers who have it very easy now. That's a different kind of watchmaking, when you sit there for days and weeks really trying to figure out how to put back together what you actually took apart, because it's been on a cleaning machine or you've been waiting for a part for a while. Those are the minds that somehow had to be delivered to you to figure out that puzzle, to get that going. It does take time. And of course, Mcdonald is a genius. I mean,
Stephen Mcdonald said something fantastic during your interview of him. Maybe you didn't resonate on it. Today, they're watch movement constructors who are fully fledged engineers on one side, and you've got watchmakers on the other, or the people who actually disassemble and reassemble movements. And because they're decorrelated now, we've got a big issue in our industry. One of the many issues we have, by the way. One of the big issues is that these engineers, youngsters, they can be super talented, but all they do is work on their 10-1 size a Pro Inch or whatever, a SolidWorks, blah, 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 which calculates all the ratios for them, and it does everything and tells them, oh, it's okay if you've got 3 microns between one piece of metal and the other. And then the watchmaker goes, dude, how the hell am I going to assemble this thing? Yeah. Oh, but the software told me it was okay. So that's one of the many incredible qualities of Stephen, and of many other people I've worked with. But we're talking of Stephen because he was there last week, and I've got such an enormous soft spot for him. But he's got both sides, and completely in both ways, he taught himself, which is insane.
It is insane. Yeah, and I totally wholeheartedly agree with you, because that's what, in addition to heading up all show part complications and all that for myself, that's what I was really hired to do, because that was an era when they were creating the first Quattro, the 4-barrel, and it all looked great on the computer, right? But longevity-wise, who's going to know if it works? What works? Does it really work? So then it would fall on my bench and report back to Switzerland and all that kind of stuff, because exactly what you said, it's you got a group of people who are great in working in CAD, and it works. You know, they've tested everything, but that is not real life. It's not what's on the bench. And for people like us who have seen watches that are 150 years old, if not older, come across and see the wear and tear, and the other watchmakers that shouldn't have been in there hacking away at something they shouldn't hack away with just so they can get some money on their table to say they fixed something for somebody. It's just a quick fix, and the guy doesn't want to pay for it. And all those things that go along those routes. A watch has to be built to take it. You know? And independent watchmaking, from what I've seen from all of our friends, that's how most of us are building our watches, because we want them to last. It's not just a commodity to look cool. When we get down into the guts, which is the movement, we're overbuilding everything. I mean, that's what I'm doing here, obviously. It's got to last because my name's on it. It's not a...
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because I think, well, there are many reasons I think that's a good thing. But for example, think of the 60s when we all started this, in the Swiss industry at least, started wanting to do the thinnest, which we're coming back to, by the way, these years, which is weird. And we had these watches, which, well, already the case were, of course, not water resistant. You would actually flex your wrist and the whole watch would stop. And you had, everybody wanted to have the thinnest caliber. And it was, and I'm looking at this 50 years, 60 years later, and everybody's going down that same road. I'm like, do you actually think this is a very good idea? No. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I got myself a Bulgari Octo Finissimo this summer. I think it was an amazing watch. Great value for money. But I'm thinking, is that a really great idea? Because what we do should be something which can be repaired in 20, 50, 100, 200 years.
Every single part in the watch.
Exactly. And it should, if possible, not need repair before a very long time. And so these record-breaking ultra-thin pieces, they're great as show horses, but when you race them, it could be a problem.
No, I'm not one for stamped parts and parts that can't be remanufactured, gears and pinions that I can't do on normal, Shaolin type machines when necessary into the future. Yeah, it has to be repaired that way. Roger W. Smith he's laid that line on his watches. Most of us have, and I think that's just the way that it should be a stamp of independent watchmaking. Because that word independence, people are graduated. They get into the hobby, they perhaps make a lot of money. The first thing they buy is their Rolex. Then they realize there's more. There's a Patek, and they start climbing that ladder. And now they reach the end of that ladder of the collection, and they find one of the independents, probably your brand, and they're like, whoa, I'm going to go over there, and then I'm going to go over here. So we have to offer something that's way, way, way beyond. We are the watchmakers for the watchmakers, and that's what we have to represent. They have a security of not going, well, they're not a big brand. How am I going to get parts in 20 years for my timepiece if I'm going to spend that much money? Well, it actually is the opposite. What we're trying to tell you is those parts you're buying from the Swiss brands, at Swiss laws, they only have to give you parts for 20 years. Then you're screwed, bro. You're actually screwed. With our timepieces, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years from now, you can buy one of mine or one of Max's, and anybody can make the screws, the parts, the gears, the pinions, because they're thick enough and big enough to be made on traditional watchmaking machines by a master watchmaker who knows how to do it. So it's always going to be a repair.
I know, but yeah, one of the things I want to sort of steer this in a different direction, because like onto the sort of a retrospective, looking at what you have done, some of the pieces and the people that you have worked with. And Joe, you mentioned Peter Speakmarine, Eric Giroud, Laurent Bess in the HM1. Also, I'm looking at Jean-Marc Wiederich, who was
HM3.
Yeah, who has become, like, look at the brand that he has, his Agenor has become. And,
look at the chronograph, isn't that cool?
It's insane.
Wow.
It's what watchmakers dream of. All these years, you always dreamed of what he's done, and he did it. It's amazing.
Well, it's profound a concept as Stephen's perpetual calendar. It is reinventing a 200-year-old complication and completely rewriting the rule book for that. And again, wonderful to see that development. But I was going through a little bit of the MB&F history today, and Joe, some of the people that you have worked with over the years, we've spoken to David Kando here, Dan. We have, we've had Kari Voutilainen. Kari's played a big part in a lot of the MB&F creations down the years too, and still. Can I
tell you the story of how we got Kari on board for the first piece?
Yeah. Tell us.
Please do.
So I've created now the Legacy One, which was an enormous battle with my own team, with everybody, because actually Legacy One, and I'm going to digress as usual, was supposed to be an HM.
Right.
And it's the beginning of my balance wheel fetishism. Meaning I absolutely wanted to do an HM which would showcase the balance wheel. So it was basically a thing with 3 tubes, with one with the balance wheel in it, and one was the hours and minutes, and one was the power reserve. And whatever I designed was either absolutely ugly, or it looked like what Vianney Halter had done as a piece unique for Goldfile in 2001. As this was driving me crazy, and it was driving poor Eric Giroud crazy, because for 6-8 months I kept on making him change the project. Now, at some point I say, you know what, forget this, we can't manage, and I draw exactly LM1. A round watch, 2 dials, as if it was a pocket watch, the flying balance wheel, which is the beginning, as I said, of the fetishism, and which I'm going to actually roll out for the rest of my life. And so coming out, I can do this. And the vertical power reserve. Now, I've got this idea. I go and see Jean-François Maujon. In those days, we didn't have engineers in-house. Now we've got 4 engineers in-house doing all our developments. And that was 2008, sorry. And so I go and see Jean-François Maujon, who was just at the beginning. He'd done the incredible De Grisogono digital mechanical watch, which was really cool. He'd done the MCT watch, which was really cool also. And I go and see him, and he says, okay, wonderful, let's do this. And I said, but I've got a dream. I would like to work with Kari. So I knew Kari. Hello. He knew Kari. And so we send him a message and say, we would like to come and see you. So Jean-François, Serge, my technical director, who's also my minority shareholder partner in the company, who joined me 12 years ago, and myself, we go up to Motier and we see Kari. And so after the usual banter, I say, look, Kari, I've got an idea. It's a very classical watch compared to what I've done. And I really would love you to work with me on this, because I need pointers and cues on how do we do something which looks like a 1850, 1860 pocket watch. And he hasn't seen anything, and he looks at me and he's like, Kari. And he goes, I would love to, but I've got so much work. I have no time to work for anybody else. And I'm sorry. And we're all 3 like, oh no. And so I said, look, okay, I'm going to take the drawing out and I'll show you. And maybe you can give me a few pointers, at least that. So I take the drawing out and show it. The drawing was really the watch as you see it today. Right. And he looks at this. He doesn't say anything for a moment, and then he takes a pencil and he starts drawing. you could do it this way, and you could do that, and you could do this, and the bridge there could be like this, and the balance wheel, it would be nice to have that. And he's talking all by himself. It goes on like for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And suddenly he stops talking, looks up, and I look at him and I say, Kari, does that mean you're going to do it? And he cracks up with this enormous smile, and I've got goosebumps thinking of it. And he goes, this I'm definitely going to do. And, wow. And so that's the first thing. And then, so we work with him on that, and with Jean-François. And then he sees the final product. He's only worked on the movement at some point. The final product during the Basel Fair 2011. So I had this little booth next to Peter. And so Kari, I drag him from the HCI to come and see the watch. And he comes in, I close the door, and I show him the watch. And, you know, Kari, he's become much more expressive in the recent years, but he was very, he didn't really know what he thought. And he puts the watch on his wrist, and he cracks up with this enormous smile. And he goes, this is perfect. Wow. I remember use that word. And he's like, looking at it, and I'm like, yeah. And you know it. And you know, it's Kari. I mean, for me, he's one of the two greatest classic watchmakers today. 2, 3. I don't want to start getting into competitions. And then he looks at me and he says, "Would you agree to swap?"
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do I get one?
And I'm like, what? He says, "Yeah, I'll give you one of my pieces if you give me one of these."
Nice. That's it.
Those are stories I want to tell my children. Yeah, I probably, unfortunately, won't know my grandchildren because I started late in life. But I want to tell my kids when they're that this is what happened to your dad. This is what happened in the story. And this product is an assembly of all these incredible stories which bring great products. Do not come without great stories. Mm-hmm. It's not crappy marketing storytelling. It's real stories of real people.
It's human nature, my friend. That's what we do. That's how we started this interview. It's human nature, and it's love, and how we feel as artisans and artists and creators and visionaries, how we relate to another visionary. Does it fit us? And we sometimes are saying, I'm kind of busy. It really is cool, but and then somebody pushes that person, or they just see something else in it, and there it is. The light bulb goes off, and that person, all of a sudden, he can, wait a minute, I do fit this. Wait, I didn't see that. And those stories like that, it's incredible. That's what we all like to listen to.
Did you do the trade?
Sorry?
Did you do the trade?
Of course I did. I've got my 28 in white gold with a black dial, and I've just asked for a new dial from Kari, he's making a new dial for it. And he's got his gold LM1. And he's also got an LM101. And he actually wears them very often. I actually have collectors who meet him at meetings, and he's wearing our LMs.
That's cool.
And they're like, dude, Kari's wearing your watch. Also, isn't it? So, yeah, these are incredible stories. But, I mean, of course, we all speak about the famous guys.
Yeah.
Kari's a famous guy. But it's also all the other people who are not famous. There are all sorts of stories of incredible human beings. The one which really, really, really made me happy was these insane 8-piece uniques we just released with this absolutely incredible engraver called Eddie Jacquet, who was introduced to me through Kari. Yeah. Because when we decided on the legacy machine engraving in Anglaise, you call that, which had to be hand engraved. It's one of the very few watches which is still hand engraved. He said, you go and see Eddie, he's incredible. And that's how I met him. And then the whole story of how he had no more work, and he came to us to have his unemployment stamp put on his unemployment paper 4 years ago. And I was like, what? Are you insane? And then we sat down and said, what can we do together? And it all started that way. And he read 65 Jules Verne books, and then he drew everything. And 4 years later, 3 months per base plate, that's 24 months for 8 watches, and there was 2 years before of preparation. Yeah. And virtually only done that for those 8 pieces. And I don't know if I told you that story. In January this year, I called him up because he was like super late. because we were supposed to have the 8 pieces for Watches and Wonders. And my team was telling me, like, he's like got 2 ready. It's like nothing. We had no idea there would be no Watches and Wonders, and there was going to be COVID and all that stuff. So I called him up and I said, so Eddie, what's happening? I mean, do you have other work? Has other brands given you work? And I would understand, but tell me. And he's like, no, but I don't think I'm ever going to have a project like this in my life.
Wow.
He says, what you've given me as an opportunity has never happened to me, and I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm really sorry, Max, but I'm taking my time. And every one of these pieces is going to be my legacy. And he took 3 months per base plate.
Wow.
And if you take on the microscope and you see the work on it, it's mind-blowing.
Wow.
And we will probably get the last piece in March next year.
Wow.
And when this gentleman with such talent and such humility tells you, you've allowed me to do the project of my life, talk about giving back.
Yeah.
Talk about being proud.
That's a true artist, man. But you were speaking before, like, man, it's a shame about Basel Fair, and because it seems like, everyone's hanging out together and things come about from that, that even though most watchmakers don't like human contact, we like mechanical things and we're comfortable, almost all of us.
But they like other watchmakers because we're all
watchmakers.
Socially inadequate and we're only interested in talking about watches.
Bingo.
So when we come into normal people's lives, it's difficult to relate.
Yes.
I mean, I just went out for a pizza before coming to speak to you guys, and I was with 2 friends who love watches and with their wives, and the wives just looked at us and said, you guys go to the end of the table. And we spent the whole evening talking about watches because that's what we do.
What I was saying is, because that's been removed from us due to the pandemic, it is the same exact thing, Max, in music, at my level, let's say. We're at a NAMM show, or usually it's a big giant festival, an outdoor festival in Europe, Castle Donington or whatever it may be, where there's hundreds of thousands of people there. And we're all backstage and all the musicians are there. And it's the few times that the bands really mix it up. You're not just on tour with 1 or 2 bands for months at a time. There's many bands. And we'll be backstage. So you get to meet those people, just like in watchmaking. Oh, is Carrie Voutilanen over there? It's kind of like that. Oh, no, it's Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. How do I get over there? I want to speak to Tony. And we all start to congregate. And what do we talk about? It's the only thing we feel comfortable is music. And that's how those special songs, those one-off songs, all of you might have seen and said, how the hell did those guys get together to make that music together from all the different bands? And it's the same kind of thing. We congregate, we only associate there, and we talk about, oh man, imagine if my guitar met your drums. Is there a way? Can you get out of your contract for a day? We can release it without your manager killing us. And that's how we come together. That's at least what I perceive, somehow you pulled off with MB&F. That through your what you do, your charismatic nature to be able to pull out. That's like the story from Carrie. Somehow, some way, you're meeting different people, and you've made it happen. You made the impossible happen. Yeah, I don't think it can be duplicated. It really, first of all, it'll be a copy, and nobody likes a copycat in independence. We all see it. So if you try it,
we shouldn't. It's the worst thing. I mean, honestly, there's nothing to be proud of if you start copying anything. And the secret of any success is creating your own path. And I don't want to be like some sort of management guru, but honestly, the guys who've succeeded were all people who did their own thing and didn't try to do like somebody else.
Bingo.
That doesn't happen in music, in watchmaking, in life.
You know what?
Do your thing.
In music, we always call that, the one-hit wonders. So you'd be like, oh, that girl, she put out a song, and in 2 weeks she sold 2 million copies. And as thrash metal and heavy metal artists, we always say, wait 2 years. She's gone. There's another one. We'll still be here because we are who we are. The T-shirt you buy from me, it's my T-shirt. It's the same one. I designed it. It's my design. Like it or not, If you don't like it, don't buy it. Maybe you'll like the second one I produce. The guitar pick I throw out in the audience, that's me. If Bart Simpson was on it, that's because I liked the Simpsons that year. And it just so happens I did have Bart Simpson picks for a while. But, you know, it all comes from us. It's our life story. And that's what independent watchmaking is. And I keep pressing this because I guess I'm the only dude who could kind of say this because I was the co-creator of that type of music. And independent watchmaking is the thrash metal of watchmaking. You know, V&A Holter, he's like the crazy guy. You know, everyone's a character. If you put a guitar in that dude's hand, he'd be jumping off the drum riser, stage diving. He'd be out of his mind. You know, he fits that bill. You know, and if you go into corporate watchmaking, it's not going to work. It's guys making stuff on rows and rows of CNC machines and little cubicles where one person is putting the wheel in and that chick passes it to the next person who puts the screw in, and then it's just an assembly line of bullshit. As far as I'm concerned, it's not art. It's bullshit. And
I didn't say that. For once, it's not me saying that. So thank you very much.
I can say whatever I want, bro. It's the way. That's what this show is all about. Is telling the truth. That's the way I always live my life. It's bullshit music and there's bullshit watches. It's just the way it is. You know, independence is not that. Independence is true artists. You know, like what you do. Mcdonald, you know, he's locked in his cubicle. He's a mad scientist, man. What comes out of his place, it's unheard of. No one's ever seen it before. What he created for you, it's crazy. Us watchmakers at our level look at that and go, you know, like seriously, like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that you can get that incredible art out of those people, and we all thank you for that. We really do thank you. You are, like it or not. And again, me and Johnny, right? Most of the people we speak to on here, they don't realize the love they've given when we tell them that. So we're telling you, you're not giving product, whatever with the money. I don't really care about that. You are extending an olive branch of love to the collectors and to the watchmakers. You're bringing people together, and that is a beautiful thing. That's what life is all about, man.
Without a doubt, because Joe, the amount of the talent that is now standing on the
wipe the shit off my nose though. But yeah,
the amount of watchmaker, independent watchmakers that you have had an association with down the years, who are now thriving, who are now flourishing, who are now established on their own right. You know, what Dan's saying there, like, you know, giving back, you surely have. You know, yes, it has worked to your advantage because you had an objective, you had a dream, you had this vision. You know, and to do that, you knew that you needed certain people to do certain things. For example, let us talk about Thunderdome, for example, with Eric Coudray. You know, that piece could only have been made by Eric Coudray. That the triple axis tourbillon. Now, I know Carrie was involved in the finishing, and the first time on the underside that it was Carrie's distinctive finishing. But my point is, I'm wondering here a little bit, as usual, that you have given a platform for so many of these people, and that have had them at different stages in their careers. Yes, Carrie, thankfully, has always been very, very busy since the day you first asked him.
Yep.
But it's also been a wonderful marriage of these people coming together under the MB&F. Like I described them, the trailers I was putting out over the last couple of days, you know, the coolest gang in Watchville. You know, everybody just gravitates towards this incredible brand that you've built up. Yes, you flew by the seat of your pants for the first few years, and I know I've heard many interviews, Max, that you came close to the wire on a number of times, but it's hopefully now you seem to have a perfect model in that, you know, you're the right size. You're not too big. You're virtually, you're almost oversubscribed on launch day, which is beautiful, and it funds the rest of the operation and allows you to move into other areas as well, not just the watches, but you've got this fantastic relationship with Lepay, who have been, do you know,
that's a great story.
I think you've actually done two things. Barbara asked a question earlier on about.
I saw the question is, when you create your brand, there are 3 ways you get out of it.
Yeah.
1, you go bankrupt. 2, you sell it, but that's not going to happen. And 3, you die. So
3, you die.
Getting out of the brand you've created.
It dies on its arse, as we say here. But
coming back to Lepe, let's talk about that, if I may, guys.
Sure, please go ahead.
So when we created the Mad Gallery in Geneva 9 years ago, it's going to be our 10th anniversary next year. I actually, at the same year, I am a juror at the Lausanne School of Design, which is becoming pretty famous, called the ECAL. And I was blown away by the quality and the talent of some of these youngsters during that year I was presiding. And at the end of the prizes of the year, one of the youngsters came up to me. He's a young Chinese named Xin Wang. And he came up and he says, do you give internships? And it was like, no, because I do all my designs with Eric Giraud. I mean, this is symbiosis. This is how it works. It's been, but if there's one thing I've learned is that when you see talent, try and keep it close to you. And so I went back. I was thinking, what can I do? We have nothing to give this guy. And then I realized we've got this Mad Gallery. Maybe we could create some cool mechanical art pieces which are not watches for the gallery.
Yeah.
So I called him up. I said, okay, I'm going to give you an internship, but we're not going to do any watches. And he's like, you're MB&F, and we're not going to do watches. Like, no, we're not doing watches. Come over and I'll explain. And the first piece we actually created was the pen that we did many, many years later with Caran d'Ache.
Yes.
Then was the music box, which became the music machines that we did with Rouge.
Yeah.
And then we did the first clock. So in all 3 cases, actually, no, in Caran d'Ache, I knew the owners. And they were the longest ones to convince. And Rouge and Lepe, I didn't know the CEOs at all. So I basically wrote to them, hello, I'm Max Büsser of MB&F. You probably have never heard of us. We were this crazy little watch gang. We got a few ideas. Can we come and see you? And in both cases, we came and showed them the designs. And these guys did really classic music boxes or clocks. And we come with this sort of X-Fighter for the music box, and Deep Space Nine for the clocks. And both CEOs go, okay, let's do this. Like, really? Okay, let's do this. And in the case of Lepe, it was incredible because actually Nicolas, who's still in place and he's a really good friend of mine now, he was like, this is fantastic. I have nothing for next year, which is 175th anniversary. Let's call it 175th anniversary clock. I'm like, is that actually what you want? Because, I mean, you're a super classic conservative clock bang. And he said, yeah, let's do this. And he came out with it, and they sold it. It was a limited edition of 175 clocks. I don't think they've ever done that. And they sold out in a year like that. Wow. And at that moment, he comes back to me and he says, I think something has brought you on my path. We've been hit by something dramatic. They were actually doing OEM. They were doing actually private label clocks for many high-end brands. Yeah. And one very famous brand that I cannot mention was doing 40% of their business. And I just told them, we don't want any more clocks. Business is bad. China is not working, blah, blah, blah. We're canceling everything. So they lost overnight 40% of their business, just as I was doing my first clock with them. So Arnaud came and said, do you have any other ideas? I was like, yeah, I've got a ton of ideas. Let's do stuff. And that's how we did Arachnophobia, and then we did Melchior the robot, and then we did, and all this was done. There you go, Arachnophobia, Melchior, Balthazar, etc. And that was all done with this young Chinese intern who was incredibly talented, Xin. And then he went back to China and opened his own design studio. And then I sort of every year from that, I would take on one of the very talented graduates from that school and give them an 8-month internship, very well paid. It's not the sort of internships where you work for nothing. And we would work on all these projects. So all the clocks, all the music boxes, all the things you've seen were created by young graduates. And then they can finally, when they're looking for their real job, because I don't have a job to give them, so they can show that this is what I did. I did this.
You're lucky.
They've all gone on to create their own design studios, which I'm really proud of. And I work with a few of them now. And you may have seen the last two pieces, T-Rex and Trinity, which we work with this young German guy who's insanely creative called Maximilian Martens. That's the T-Rex. And so that he did during the internship. That was based on one of my ideas. And then he did the Trinity, which you don't have in photos, I think, which it was his idea. And so we can credit them also in the press kit. And it helps, Henri John Belmont gave me my first job when I was 24, and I never absolutely expected to work in the watch industry. And you never forget the first guy who gave you your first job. And if you can do that for somebody else in your life, you're making love go round. This is how it should go on.
This is where
every time I give a first job to somebody today, it makes me super proud.
It is. It's the most impressive thing, and that's how we started this. What we've been talking about, and that olive branch of love. And I knew it was all around you. I didn't know it was this deep, bro, but I knew it was all around you. That's what I'm trying to do here for my country as well. Once my timepiece is out there, then it'll be a little bit larger of a facility where I can take in a few young people, let them use the machines they can't get in this country. They just don't exist, that have been restored here, and get them going on making their own pieces and representing my country and giving them that first shot. In addition to a nonprofit that we've started to help them on their way with the tools that they need. And that's what we all should do. We got to give back. And you're right. It's that first little push when you're younger that you never forget. You never, ever forget. Never, ever. So, man, you're a blessing all around, bro. See? Even when you don't know it, you know it.
Here, Max.
Amazing.
Yeah. Listen, I told you we would love to have an hour of your time, and we've already gone well past that as usual. It's Dan's fault. I honestly blame Dan, right? But I wanted to go back over a couple of questions because there are a couple of important ones there. Barbara did ask earlier on, do you feel that daughters changed your outlook? And do you give love back to the women who loved you? I think led today. Well, no. The reason I asked that question is because I was reading that today, and about the inspiration for the Flying T was something that you had your mum in mind, and to give back to the women in your life. I don't want to answer that question for you, Max, but it was something that I knew I had something there that was relevant to Barbara's question there. So
no, look, I don't think I ever would have done something like that 10 years ago. Or 15 years ago when I created MB&F, it was all about me. It was 100% about me, and it was not only about me. I was a very angry. I was going to say young man. I wasn't young anymore, I was an angry man. I was angry against my industry. I was angry against myself, and there was and it was my story. I was writing my story, and then I started doing collaborations after. I'm not talking of the pieces I created for myself with people who actually made them come to life. I'm talking like the first time I sat down with somebody like Alan Silberstein in 2008. And I'd never met him before, but I was an enormous fan. I was like this groupie of his. And I was like, well, would you accept to redesign one of my pieces? And then I was like, what did I just ask him? And then he said yes. So we worked together, and all these things happened. And Barbara's question is incredibly important. Meeting Tiffany, my wife now for 9 years, having our two daughters, who are now 7 and 3, has completely changed me. I'm no more the self-centered bastard I used to be. Tiffany has really enriched my life in hundreds and thousands of ways, and my daughters, of course, also. And I found that actually giving love is much more rewarding than getting love. And I think that for a very long time, I was searching for that love, and I was trying to get it, not only in my relationships, but in my work. And then when I realized that giving was actually way more enjoyable than getting, then everything started becoming much more harmonious and balanced in my life. Now, these are things which you can hear and say, oh yeah, okay, whatever. It doesn't mean anything till you live it. And so, yeah, so from that started the whole process of flying tea. And yeah, it was for my mom, it was for my wife, it was for my daughter. Then my mom passed away, but my second daughter arrived in my life. So there's always 3 women gravitating around me. And that was probably the most difficult project of my 15 years, because it's the only project which was not for me. When I create for myself, especially after 15 years, I pretty much know what I like, even though I like to get out of my comfort zone. I like to take risks, but creating something for somebody else, for a woman. We know that us men, we don't understand anything to women, and that's when we understand that it's the beginning of enlightenment. And then it's the women who made me, the women I love, and it was terrifying, and it was so tough for my team, because they've never seen me so clueless. They've never seen me so self-doubting myself, and I made them go here and there and this and that, and I'll stop and do something different. I mean, if I show you all the different iterations of what that watch was supposed to be, you don't even believe it. Like, how did that go from here to there? Yeah. Because it was crazy, until at some point in my guts, it started resonating. This feels right. And I never showed Tiffany my watch before the launch date. And she discovered it at the launch date at an event here in Dubai. And so, yeah, it was incredibly gut-wrenching. But again, the wave of love and energy and pride that you get when you've been so friggin' scared, and it actually is receptioned with love from your wife and from the industry. And I always remember my best retail partner in those days was the Hourglass in Singapore. Yeah. They were selling 50, 60 MB&Fs a year out of our 200, 220 pieces. So it's like a quarter of our pieces were being sold by them. And they came into SIHH, that was January last year, and they ordered 5. Which was perfectly okay with me, because I was making 35 that year. So I did my bets. And so we did the launch. I can't remember which date the launch was. It was March, April, something like that. And I was in Singapore for the launch. And the first evening, they sell 11 pieces. And so the next morning, we're debriefing with the team. And I'm like, okay, guys, so how come you didn't think it was going to be a success, and clearly it is? What happened? And they looked at it and they said, but women don't want very thick watches. That's a 2-centimeter thick watch. And women want thin watches. I'm like, yeah. And women, they don't want complicated watches and tourbillons, and there's no market for that. So when we saw that it was a 2-centimeter high tourbillon, we thought, okay, we'll buy 5 just to make him happy, but they're never going to sell. Right. I said, yeah, guys, do men want watches which look like spaceships and cars and airplanes and clocks which look like T-Rexes? Of course not. Yeah. That's what we do. We create crazy stuff which nobody wants on paper. Right. And then maybe there are a few people who are crazy enough who love that, who've got the means.
Matt, isn't it so hard to explain how people who, such as yourself, think outside the box, outside that corporate boardroom, outside the numbers, outside what the norm is, or someone like me creating what I create, not just here, but in my past. You can't explain that until it's proven, until you give them that song and it's a success. I mean, I was the first band to take heavy metal and mix it with hip hop and release a song together. The record company tried to stop it. It was done, produced by one of the biggest producers in the world, Eddie Kramer, who did every Led Zeppelin album, every Jimi Hendrix album. I mean, everything. They just said, we're not releasing it. It's career suicide. It's impossible. What do you think you're doing here? You're heavy metal. You have heavy metal. You have hip hop. That's just the way it is. It's the two audiences. Well, they'll kill each other if you guys ever play live together. If you do something with another band, whatever it is. Later on, we went on to do a combination with us and Public Enemy. But luckily, we had signed a contract because they had no clue what to do with thrash metal when we initially signed with the record label. And we had already been rolling, so we signed an unheard of contract where we had complete say across the board. And we were the few people that could just say, put it out. Just put it out. They put it out, and bam, it goes crazy. Then what happens to the guys with the suit and ties, Max? Oh, we knew it was going to be a hit. We just didn't, It's still, they can't think like us. Man.
Shoot, Max.
I've got a question for Dan, because if there was one documentary which blew me away this year, was The Defiant Ones with Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. Is that actually what actually happened? Because that 4 hours, I was like mesmerized at these two insane guys. Is that something which really happened?
I didn't see that, so I'm not familiar.
You didn't? Oh my God!
It's
the story of Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, and it's on Netflix. 4 times 1 hour. It was gut-wrenching, insane. And there's this thing, and you see how Dr. Dre produced everybody from Snoop Dogg to Tupac to Lady Gaga to you name it, and they're all the time outliers, all the time sounds and guys girls who were completely weird, and he would find them. And while all the other guys were always looking for the copy-paste groups which are trendy. It's an incredible story of these two guys who come from nowhere and meet The Defiant Ones, Netflix. That's the show to see. 4 hours.
Defiant Ones.
Absolutely.
We have a comment here from a gentleman I have asked several times to come and join us, and it's lovely to have a comment from the amazing maestro Antoine Prezioso. He, the king of tourbillons. And Antoine, the door is open, my friend.
Anytime, my friend.
Yourself or Florian are more than welcome to join us here, and thank you for your comment, Max.
And it's great that Antoine and Florian have basically created themselves. I mean, Antoine had his ups, then he had his downs, and then he came together with his son, and they recreated the whole thing. And I think kudos to them, because it's not easy when you've had success, you've lost it, and then you can recreate it again.
Brilliant. Well, I hope that we can get Antoine on.
Oh, they're making masterpieces there, and again, the father and son, the love, the whole thing, Max.
Totally. Yeah. Hey, Dan, there's a question you usually like to ask about 10 minutes ago in this, which is what does Max listen to?
Yeah, music.
Yeah.
Tell us about a little bit about your music history growing up and what you listening to now. Do you allow people in your workshops to listen to music, or are you a slave driver?
No, of course. I mean, with headphones, you don't want to have like 5 different musics at the same time.
No.
Music is an incredibly important part of my life. I actually didn't know you were going to ask that question. So I've got incredibly eclectic taste. If you look at my playlist, you will think I'm insane. It will go from opera to AC/DC, going through French classical songs, through soul, disco. It will go. I mean, I love something which has got character, which has got a sound, which defined an era. And I'm not a. It's interesting. A lot of people are vertical in their love. They will, when they're passionate about something, they will go like that and they'll know everything about it. I'm not that, I've discovered. I'm a transversal person. I am curious. I want to know a bit about everything. And if you make me listen to, the other day, I found Indian rap. I was like, whoa, insane. You see that film called Gully Boy? I went to the movie to see this, like, what am I doing? My wife and I were like, are we really going to see an Indian rap thing? It's actually the story of the guy who's it's like 8 Mile, but for this guy who's called Gully Boy, who came from the slums. It's a real story, and who became this insane Indian rap artist. And I was in the movie house, like, and it was, but it's a sound. It's something defining. I think the things which I don't like, for whatever reason, I can't stand reggae. I can't tell you why, but I hear reggae, I'm like, I'm out of here.
It's a brown note. I'm afraid I agree with you on that one. There was a band in the UK called UB40, and like they actually used to do something to my body.
Is the only reggae group I used to love. There's a rat in the kitchen, what am I gonna do? There's a rat in the kitchen, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna think that rat. So,
wow.
So wait a minute, you grew up. When did you leave Milan? I know you were born.
No, I left Milan when I was 3 years old. But I actually got into music really late in life. For whatever reason, my parents didn't listen to music at all, and I didn't even have any music. And I had a radio, FM radio, next to my bed, and I was always sick when I was a kid, and I was always in bed with like 39 centigrade fever. And I remember I would listen to the Hit Parade, it was called, every day. And we're talking, of course, 45 years ago. And I would remember, for example, it was Queen, Another One Bites the Dust, was #1 on the charts like for 6 months. And I would wait every day to listen to that song. I didn't have a record player. I didn't have a tape recorder. I had to wait for that. And for whatever reason, I only had the money when I was 16. Again, don't forget, I'm a geek. I have no friends. I'm not a cool guy. I'm like the epitome of not the cool guy. And so my best friend was a Commodore 64. And so I get a record player, and my first 3 LPs, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh, my street cred is going to disappear now. If I had any. My first 3 LPs, the first one, great for my street cred, Genesis Abacab.
Yeah. Okay.
With 1984, something like that. My second one, Jean-Michel Jarre, Equinox, complete.
I used to listen to that all the time. I can't believe you just said that. That's totally obscure, man. Because
and are you ready, guys? This is where I lose my whole cred. My third is Barbara Streisand, Falling in Love with Barry Gibb. I would listen to those 3 records. That defines me. That's so different.
That's like drug music. Were you doing drugs?
I actually, you know what? I've never actually done drugs. I was going to say really done drugs because
that's
I
like
drugs. I don't
trance, put yourself in a hypnotic state music. But yeah, I know all that stuff. That's great. So it just shows you way back when you had a diverse collection, eclectic, whatever you want to call it. I call it open-minded. People also always think heavy metal people always just listen to heavy metal. Complete opposite. The true creators of songs that last for hundreds and hundreds of years, or at least 8 years, or 7 years, more than a pop star. We listen to everything. It's guys, not just listening to music because we're dissecting it like you look at other people's works in watchmaking, in music. We're dissecting the art of writing. How is the song written? It's not necessarily even that we're even sucking in the music. It's the structure why does it move a person a certain way and all that. So there's a different brain to true musicians of how we're listening to it. But to have an open mind is the best way to go.
I was from the age of 17 to the age of 24 to make a living. I was a cinema usher. So I actually forgot to tell you, my parents had no money. So I did all sorts of small jobs. So I was the guy taking the tickets like 2 to 3 nights a week. And when Amadeus came out, Milos Forman's Amadeus, it came in my movie house. And every evening I was looking at the movie. And I will always remember that moment when Salieri is reading Mozart's notes, and he's hearing, and he's going, how is this even possible? I will always remember that. I mean, like, again, Mozart has played an enormous part in my life. Go figure. I don't understand where all of this comes from.
I can relate to that because music, I have a very, very diverse taste in music as well. And I do love from Anthrax to ABBA, from Rammstein to Blinking, the Carpenters, and all points in between. I love French 20th century piano music, like Eric Satie or things like that. There, when I'm working, it's there in the background, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So I empathize. My wife has sent me a text message now to say, "Is he your twin?" So because right through your own story, Max, I'm just shaking my head here, going, so many different points of it. But
well, you say you don't understand why you listen to that Beethoven appeals to you so much. It's extremely complex. But it doesn't seem as so. It's behind the curtain. It is so complex. It's incredible. And it seems that's how your mind works as well. It's a pinpoint, but it's also trying to absorb everything and everywhere you go. And you just keep absorbing. But now, you get to spit it out through your art. And we all appreciate it, Max, man. You're one in a million, bro. Big time.
Indeed, a great opportunity. Like, Max, I would love to sit here and talk for the next 2 hours, but it's not fair on you. I would love to extend an invitation to come back, do this again in maybe 8 or 10 or 12 months' time, and if we're all still here, and because this has been absolutely fantastic. I have got that I didn't even get started on, and so I got to put that one in the fridge and keep it for next year. And but I just want to really thank you very much for joining us. I also want to thank everybody who has tuned in tonight. It's been another long-ish edition of In the Metal. People, thanks so much for following us. Thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube. Follow us on our Facebook, our YouTube channel, and we will do our best to bring you the very best of independent watchmaking in a unique format, and get to see just the underbelly of this incredible industry with Max Büsser, the CEO, the head honcho of the coolest gang in Watchville, MB&F. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Again, thank you, Max. We appreciate you being here today, but appreciate what you do, what you've done for the industry, what you will do in the future for independent watchmaking, from the small guys to letting them dream, letting them look at your product, and now finally hearing a lot more of your story, the struggle that's real, the struggle that was real, and still to this day, even just your last story of the woman's watch, that's a struggle. It really is a hurdle when people don't believe in what you believe inside of you. So don't let anybody push you around and push you down. If you're a true artist, create your art, follow Max's path, and just put your art out there, and move on to your second piece, move on to your third piece. You can release it from your hand. Someone will love what you do. It's a part of you, and if you do gain the success that Max has, you can see he gives back in enormous ways through love and through pushing people forward. And that's what human nature should be about. That's what we should be here to do. So thank you, Max, again, and we wish you all the best for whatever you have in the
Absolutely.
future.
Wonderful. So hang around there for a moment or two, Max, and just when we say goodbye to everybody. So people, please join us again next edition of In the Metal. We will continue our journey into the world of independent watchmaking and bring you some astonishing watches and astonishing people and find out what makes them tick. Thank you. We will see you next time.